What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's watch list time ahead of game week 5. As you can imagine, given what just happened in game week 4, there's a lot of players that I've got my eye on. So in this video, I'm going to go through 4 players in particular that I'm either looking to bring in this week or over the coming weeks, so I think look decent, that we should have our eye on. So if you enjoy this type of video, please do give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and let's jump into the first player. So we had Son on the watch list back in game week 3, and he still is on there for sure, given how good he's looked. But now we have to add Harry Kane as well. So I mentioned post-lockdown that I thought he'd started to look better. I kept saying he's not back to his best, he's not back to his best. But he was looking better. There were some sprints, especially for counter-attacks, that saw him get forward much quicker than we've seen in recent years. We've said a few times, right? He has to get over these injuries. He has to be allowed to have a proper break. And to be fair, for him, lockdown probably came at a good time because it gave him a proper break to get over his injury, but also, you know, kind of rest a little bit more after that as well. So he came back post-lockdown looking good, and he's looked really good for the first 4 fixtures as well. So he's definitely someone I got my eye on. 9 returns in 4 games so far. Maybe he can't keep that up, but that's a pretty damn good return. And the fixtures overall, for the next 4 in particular, look really good. Now, after these 4, it does get a bit tougher, but West Ham at home, Burnley away, Brighton at home, West Brom away, all look decent. Now, you could overthink these and say that West Ham have started off pretty well. By the time they play Burnley away, both Tarkowski and me could be back for Burnley, and that's obviously going to help them defensively. But I told myself I wouldn't overthink too much this season when it comes to fixtures. And looking at those as a whole, as a group of 4 fixtures, they are, you know, they're fixtures that you'd want to target, basically. Now, 9 returns in 4 games, not sustainable. There's no way he's going to keep that up for the whole season, otherwise it'd be absolutely essential. And I do think there's some circumstances that have led to them getting so many returns, both him and Son as well. So Southampton, we talked about it before, played a very high line, and even when it wasn't working, they carried on playing like that, and it let Son in multiple times, and we know that Kane got 4 assists in that game, plus his goal as well, which is absolutely ridiculous. And obviously Man United, they conceded straight away after the penalty, and then they capitulated after the red card, and Spurs were great, to be fair, but Man United did not help themselves. So there's only so many times you want to kind of say, well, it was the opposition, until you say, well, actually, Kane and Son are looking really good, right? So it's not just the opposition, but just 1 assist in the other 2 games for Kane. So that was Newcastle and Everton, although he should have had more returns against Newcastle. So I think if you bring him in, you've got to be expecting for the returns to drop down a little bit, but that does not make him a bad option. The one issue I'm having with my team is how do I fit him in? Because he is a forward, he is 10.6 million. My highest price forward right now is Jimenez, so I can't just jump straight up to Kane. I'd have to get rid of someone like De Bruyne or Salah. And right now, I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that. But if I was on a wild card, I'd really strongly consider getting him in. So part of the idea of the watch list is not just to knee-jerk every single player that scores points, but when someone does as well as they did against Liverpool, you've got to really think about them. Grealish, to be honest, it could be Watkins on this list. Even Barkley looked pretty good as well. So Aston Villa is a team that I've definitely got my eye on. The thing with Grealish is we know he's the talisman. He's going to get probably the most assists. He's probably going to be the one that chips in with a bunch of goals as well. So he's someone to definitely look at. And I think this year, I mean, post-lockdown, they were quite good. But this year as well, they've got McGinn back. He missed a whole chunk of last season. Barkley's come in. Cash has come in at right back. They've made quite a few improvements to that team. And Watkins, yes, he's a championship striker, but so was Morpay. And I think Watkins came up. He only had 1 less goal than Mitrovic last year, I believe. So he's definitely got the credibility for scoring goals. Of course, you're not expecting a hat-trick against Aston Villa every time. But I think the problem last year was Grealish created so many chances. Like, he was right up there. I don't think he was right at the top. I think De Bruyne and Trent Alexander-Arnold were around there too. But I think Grealish was top 3. The problem was, who was he passing to, right? He's creating all these chances, but for who? Now they've got Watkins. They've got Barkley bursting forward as well. I mean, he should have had another goal, actually. It was a pretty poor finish from Barkley on his weak foot against Liverpool. It could have been 8. Absolutely insane. So Grealish definitely on there. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves though, right? It's not often that Liverpool concede 3 goals. It's not often that Man United concede 6, right? It was a bit of a weird weekend. And Leicester away is not necessarily the greatest fixture. Leeds at home, not necessarily the greatest fixture. But they'll do all right in them. I think as a whole, the next 4 are okay for Grealish. Only 7 goals, 7 assists last year. So it was decent, but not necessarily out of this world amazing where he's a must buy. But for his price at 7 million, that's a pretty good return. And there is a chance he's on penalties, right? A lot of people are asking me who's on penalties for Villa. The answer is we don't know. Villa fans don't know. I've seen people say it could be Grealish. I've seen people say it could be Barkley. They don't know any more than us, right? Grealish was kind of in the pecking order once, some of their players were off the pitch. But those players that were ahead of them are now left, or they're not playing. They're not in the first 11. So Grealish is kind of number one. But it could be Watkins. He's new to the club. They've not had a penalty in the league since he joined. It could be Barkley as well. He's got a pretty good record. Whoever gets them at Aston Villa suddenly becomes a pretty good option. I'm not saying they're going to get loads and loads of penalties, but Barkley's obviously 5.9. Watkins is only 5.9 as well. And Grealish at 7 million, being the talisman. If he got penalties as well, he could be a pretty decent player. So he is someone I'm strongly looking at. And I'll tell you why. I've actually got him in my fan team squad. He's a little bit cheaper there, only 6.5 million. And I've had him in since day one. I benched him in the first week. And obviously got me an incredible amount of points last week. So I am happy about him. He is someone I've thought about, but not really for FPL up until this point. So going to keep an eye on him. Next few fixtures look okay. And after this, by the way, after Game Week 8, the fixture run is incredible all over Christmas. So for someone like Grealish that's going to play week in, week out for that kind of price, it could be a really decent bet. So for anyone that watched my videos pre-season, you would have seen me talk about Chilwell quite a bit. I kept saying he's the one that I really want from Chelsea because you know he's going to be nailed on. And I do think that Chelsea are going to keep plenty of clean sheets this season. Now, you look at last season, they didn't keep very many. They've not started the season well either, but they have just got one against Crystal Palace. I think there's a few factors that are going to help with this, right? So Thiago Silva's coming now. Chilwell's back fit. Obviously, they've not had a left back that they want to play week in, week out. That's also defensively decent, as well as going forward attacking-wise. Obviously, Alonso was great at going forward, not necessarily the best defender. Not saying Chilwell is the most amazing defender either, but he's definitely an upgrade on Alonso, and obviously with Mendy in, Thiago Silva, and hopefully they'll play as, for obviously Reece James owners won't want me to say this, but when they play Azpilicueta right back, I think they're much more solid in defence as well, which is really going to help Chilwell. And he might miss games at some time. They've got left backs they can play instead. But really, when he's fit, he's going to be pretty much nailed in that team. Now, 5.6 million, not cheap, but with the attacking potential, the defensive potential as well, I do think he's a good buy. The fixtures are pretty good as well. So Southampton at home, Burnley away, and Sheffield United at home in the next 4. Who knows what that Man United game will be like, given how Man United has started. Maybe that will be a clean sheet as well. But overall, the next 4 fixtures are pretty good. And I think he's someone you could probably hold for more of the long term. Like, you don't want to spend too many transfers on your defenders at all. So I think for me, I just needed to see him start before I wanted to consider him. Again, if I was on wildcard this week, I think I would try and find a way to put him in. Because of the other transfers and stuff I've got to make, it's difficult to get him in this week, and I'm not sure I would get him in for Man United away, but I would definitely keep him on the watch list. When it comes to Burnley away and Sheffield United at home in game week 7 and 8, and then wanting to hold him for the fixtures after that, it really is someone that I'd like to get in. Like, I've got Luca Dean, not really too bothered about keeping him, I would say. I think he's a good player. I think he'll do well, but I can get Chilwell for a little bit less, and I'd hope that Chelsea will keep a few more clean sheets. I just think they need that first 11 to all be fit and to get like a sustained run of games. Like, they just haven't had that. They've been chopping and changing all over the place. I think once that stops, the clean sheets will be there and Chilwell will be a great option. So it's another defender to add to the list, and it's difficult to pay 5.5 million for Semedo when you can get Sice for 5.1 million. Obviously, they get the same amount of points for clean sheets, but I was quite impressed with what I saw against Fulham when it comes to attacking potential. Obviously, Semedo not been in the team long at all. We're hoping for a decent Doherty replacement. He's coming a little bit cheaper as well, which I'll talk about in a sec. And in that game, he had a really decent one-on-one with the keeper. Now, the keeper did save it quite well, but he was definitely attacking. We saw him get into the box quite a few times. He was right down that right-hand side. Obviously, they play 3 at the back, so he doesn't have to do as much defensive duty. So he is someone I like the look of. And if we think back to pre-season, we were ultimately prepared to pay 6 million for Doherty because of his attacking potential. Now, you can say maybe Semedo is not as good, but the numbers don't look too bad from his time at Barcelona. Bearing in mind, he wasn't playing in such a kind of system and a role where he could get forward as much without, again, having to do so much of the defensive duty. So if Doherty, we were prepared to pay 6 million. This guy's 0.5 million less. He definitely has to be on our radar. Again, the fixtures look pretty good. Leeds away, Newcastle at home, Crystal Palace at home, Leicester away. I'm not necessarily completely convinced by Wolves going forward, so that is a little bit of a worry when it comes to attacking potential. They have had quite a few changes into that team, which is starting to worry me a little bit going forward. But from a clean sheet perspective, they're looking pretty good. And when you add on potential attacking returns, like if you had Sice since day one, okay, you got him for 5 million. Now it's 5.1. That means if you're buying new, it's only a 0.4 million difference. That might be worth it for attacking potential. Now, we know Sice can get goals off free kicks and also from corners as well. We've already seen that happen. He was actually playing left wing back as well against Fulham, but I wouldn't expect that to happen too often going forward. The only thing I would say, if you're looking at a Wolves player, obviously they bought Marçal, who's 5 million. I don't think he's going to be as attacking as Semedo. They've also bought a guy called Ait Nouri. I've definitely pronounced that wrong, but he's only 19, I think. He's coming as a kind of left back. I'm assuming that can play left wing back as well, which is why Nuno's brought him in. And he's only 5 million. So if we see him start and he's as attacking as Semedo looks like he could be down the right, then maybe he's the best option to go for. So if you're looking to buy a Wolves defender right now, Saiss is still a great option. Semedo, if you want to take a punt on a few more attacking returns, hopefully we'll see him in the box more. We'll see him getting forward for crossing opportunities for Jimenez as well. But if you want to wait a little bit longer, although the fixtures are very good, I'd want to be on one right now. This Nouri guy could be a good option as well, so something to consider. But I don't think what I've seen so far from Wolves would worry me too much about clean sheets. But overall, they're not looking as good as last year, but there's plenty to come, especially with those fixtures. So that's it for this one. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do give it a like and subscribe if you're new around here, trying to hit 125k by the end of the season. And also, let me know in the comments below who is on your watch list. It was a pretty crazy game week 4. Lots of players to choose from. I do think it will calm down a little bit the more and more we get into the season. But there's a lot of players to be considering ahead of game week 5. And one other thing, if you've not already checked out my Patreon, patreon.com/Let's Talk FPL. There's a handy link in the description below. So anyone that signs up gets onto the Patreon Legends Wall. So this is everybody that's already signed up. Much appreciated to you as always. And there is a new sign up as well since the last video, which is Kevin T. So thanks very much. If you want to get involved, there is a link in the description below, like I said. And there's going to be team reveals. So I've already made my transfers for this week. I'm going to talk about them today. There'll be a Q&A going out today as well. There's Slack access, there's WhatsApp access, depending on which tier you get into. And I put all my videos up as podcasts over there as well. So there's plenty on offer if you want to support me and the channel a little bit more. Let's Talk FPL Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll leave that video there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you tomorrow for another video.